Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about Mass Season 3. I think this was another very good season. I enjoyed it. It's only a couple episodes I didn't really like, but none of them were like bad. Just some of them were like below average, but most of the episodes were very good. So this video I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on each character on the show and then tell you my top 5 favorite episodes. Okay, let's start off with Hawkeye. Hawkeye's pretty good. I feel like he is a pretty consistent character throughout the seasons. Very kind of bitter, I don't want to be here attitude, but also like he's still a doctor and he still cares about his patients and he likes goofing around with Trapper, messing with Frank, you know. Nothing really advances his character this season, but I feel like he's still very good. He's still a very good character. Chapel John, Chapel gets a little bit more things to do this season, though a lot of the times he's still within Hawkeye's shadow, and a lot of the times it's like you can't really. If you switch the dialogue, nothing would change. They have very similar personalities. The only difference is Chapel's married and he cheats on his wife and he has kids. That's about it. I still think Rain Rogers does a very good job. He gets some good dramatic moments this season too, which he didn't really get in the first season. He doesn't really get that many dramatic moments, but when he does, I feel like he does a very good job at it. McLean Stevenson, Henry, rest in peace. He's great. He can be very goofy and silly, and half the time you're like, how did he get this job? And in the other half, he's still a really good manager, and he's still a good leader. Much more of a delegatory leader though than a authoritative leader. But he's goofy, he's funny, he's warm when he needs to be. He will be missed. Hot Lips, Margaret Houlihan. Her and Frank are kind of getting old. Not gonna lie. She's really funny though. Like whenever she gets drunk or something. She's really funny, and we see a softer side of her occasionally when her and Chapel are sharing the bed, or when her and Hawkeye and Klinger were on that road trip. But most of the time she's just kind of stiff and, short-tempered. But I think a lot of that has to do with the way she was raised. So, we've seen a couple of her walls come down. Hopefully more of them come down as the series progresses. Frank, I'm not a big fan of Frank. He's a very static character. He doesn't change at all, and he has no redeeming qualities to him. Not a single redeeming quality to Frank Burns. So, yeah. I mean, sometimes he's funny, but a lot of times he's just kind of like, okay, we get it. You're the worst, Radar, I like Radar. I think he's great. I think he's funny. He's clever, but I feel like at this point he's kind of regressed. In season 1, he was a little bit more clever, and now he's just kind of like naive and he's kind of dumb. So he's not as intelligent as he used to be. So hopefully he doesn't get flanderized even more in the later seasons. Okay, time for my top 5 favorite episodes. Episode 1, The General Flipped at Dawn. Okay, so this has the guy who played Colonel Powder, who's not really Colonel Powder, come into the show. I read that they used this episode to kind of see how good his chemistry is with the rest of the cast. And it's funny because Harry Morgan is nothing like Colonel Powder in this episode. He's like a complete nutcase, but he's funny. Bit racist, but funny. It's you question how he got to that position, but then you remember who's running the U.S. government now, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that tracks. Season 3, episode 5. I like this one a lot overall. This is a bottle episode taking place entirely within the OR while the doctors are doing surgery. What could have been a kind of a boring episode comes off as a very grounded, naturalistic episode. There's not that many jokes in it. It's more focused on them actually being doctors, which is kind of funny because that's what I assumed the show would be, but most of the show is just them fucking around in between them being doctors. This one shows nonstop them doing surgery. And I think it's good. It shows like, yes, they're all goofy, but they're also competent, and it shows how stressful the role could be on a day-to-day basis. This is the type of stuff we don't usually see. Okay, another one I liked was season 3, episode 11, which is Adam's Ribs. I think it's very funny how the entire episode is them trying to get ribs from a shop in Chicago, which, someone who lives by Chicago, yes, Chicago food is very good, and I would miss it a lot if I was stranded halfway across the world. It's funny, like, the whole thing is done through, like, telephone to, like, connection, sitting on a plane, dropping it in, and it takes, like, Hawkeye's, like, rant at the beginning of the episode when he's sick of eating the same food every day is really funny, where he's, like, starting a revolution, he's flipping the trays over, he's screaming in the air. It's really funny over the food. Like, he's starting to crack, and at the end of the episode, they finally get the ribs, and nope, they have to do surgery. They can't eat the ribs. They'll get cold. What happened to those ribs? We never see them again. Does anybody ever eat them? Who eats them? Other episode I liked a lot was episode 19, which I mentioned earlier, Aid Station, where Hawkeye, Margaret, and Klingon have to travel to an aid station, and I don't know, it's a good episode because it shows them bonding, and it shows them going through some tough times. Klingon this episode is not the the one-trick pony he usually is, the guy who dresses up like a woman to get out of the army. He shows to be, competent when he has to be. And I liked those three of them chemistry because it's a trio we'd never really see, Hawkeye, Margaret, and Klingon. And I think all of them get a good chance. Margaret kind of has some nice moments with Hawkeye where it shows that she respects him as a doctor and he respects her as a nurse. They're very professional together, and some of it, like, sometimes when they're very stressed out, they could be wrong. And I think it's really sweet, Platonic friendship, I suppose. And then, of course, the finale, my favorite episode, Abyssinia Henry. This is the one where Henry gets sent home, except he doesn't make it home. And it's very sad. I knew about this going in, that he doesn't make it home. He gets shot down. But still, what a gut punch. The whole episode, he's so excited. He calls his wife and kids. He has one last drink with Hawkeye and Chapel, and he gives Radar his rot, and Radar gives him a bracelet or something, and it's just then he goes away and he dies, and it shows that not everyone makes it home. It is a show about war. It's not all fun and games, and it's nice to be reminded of that once in a while. My mom said that this is her first time experiencing grief because this episode aired when she was like 7 years old. Well, 8 years old. She was 8 years old when this came out. So, yeah, I mean, that must have been heavy, right? So, McLean Stevenson wanted to leave, and I respect that. He gave 3 years. That's about as much as any of the doctors from Doctor Who have been. And if you're going to write him out, that's a good way to write him out. Killing off a beloved character in a sitcom was unheard of at the time. It doesn't really happen now, does it? So, yeah, just a brutal reminder that they are living in hell. And it sucks. That final scene at the end where Radar gives the speech is heartbreaking because the doctors don't even get to mourn. They don't even get to take a minute to mourn. They have to keep operating on the patient. It's tragic. It's really tragic. And that final hug between Henry and Radar is so sad knowing what's going to happen because those two have such good chemistry together throughout all 3 seasons. It's tragic. Yeah, that's my favorite episode of the series. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys thought and what your favorite episodes of season 3 are. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.